let's hit the Dolphins.
Stands out to you with the Dolphins
so
here?
The two guys that I really want to hone in on here are Tua and Tyreek. Maybe just like quick on Achane. I think we both love him as a value. I've traded for him a couple times this offseason. So I love Achane. He's probably my favorite running back in the top 10 because I see a world where he gets into the top 4. I think he can be like right there with Gibbs as far as output and value by like week 4, 5, 6. So I love Achane. I don't really have much to say besides the fact that I love him.
Yeah, he's been probably my number one running back target this offseason. And yeah, pretty much just co-sign everything that you said right there.
Trades that I'll be trying to make with him are trying to move guys in the wide receiver glob, like that wide receiver 12 to 20 range. And like maybe you have to add a little something. Well, call it 15 to like 24, add a little something. Maybe like a second in value, or like a Nico Collins. I traded Nico straight up for Achane. So those would be the two ways that I'd be trying to do it, because I'm trying to kind of get out of that wide receiver range and into a more scarce position like running back, like tight end.
So real quick, some of the Achane trades I made, 2 of them involved Jahmyr Gibbs. So I traded Will Levis and Jahmyr Gibbs for Drake May and Achane.
Yeah, love that.
And then I traded Gibbs for Achane and Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, love it. I mean, Gibbs versus Achane. If I was forced to create a new dynasty market from scratch, I would probably start with having them almost in the same tier, if not in the same tier. I know they're not from a market standpoint. I know you can get a plus. So I'd be trying to get a plus if I had Gibbs, just like you did. So I really like those. So yeah, let's hit on Tua a little bit. So some of these trades, like when I think about Tua, I think like hard sell and like for sure don't want him on my team. And I don't have any Tua. But if you're looking on YouTube, some of the trades that have been with him are kind of nice values. Not all of them, but some of them are. So I mean, like one of them is Dalton Kincaid and Rachaad White, which isn't great. Like that's probably one of the ones that I'm not like too thrilled about. And then the other one is Tua and Barkley for Lamar Jackson. I would take Lamar there. But the other ones are fairly reasonable to me. One of them is Chris Godwin and a 24 first. So now, obviously, if it's like a top 8 pick, maybe I'm not doing that. But if it's like 9, we don't know what the number was. But if it's like 109, which was like a Worthy and a Godwin for Tua, I'd probably take that. Or if it was like 111, I got like McConkey and Godwin, I'd probably take Tua. The other ones on here are Jaylen Warren, Bryce Young in a first. Warren is just kind of like a nothing piece to me in a type of trade like this. Like maybe I use him as a flex. If I'm having to rely on Jaylen Warren as a contender, I probably suck. So I'm not really too concerned about him. I think I'm pretty in line with you that Bryce Young is not great, and all I have to do is go up. Hopefully, what turns into a late first for Tua. I don't mind that one.
Yeah, like a lot of people would rather have Bryce Young than Will Levis. I am not one of those people, but like, so if you just change Bryce Young to Will Levis there, I like that trade for the package. Like I would sell Tua for that. But the only kind of note I have on Tua is the last couple seasons, his value kind of peaked in early to mid-October. And so I do think there's something to the fact that he struggles in cold weather, in precipitation, rain, like any adverse weather, I do think affects him more than most quarterbacks. So he's a guy that, like, if he starts off hot in September and you see him rising up to being valued like near Trevor and Kyler, that's to me the time to sell. Jump off and see if you can get Trevor or Kyler or Jordan Love. Like you might have to add something to get Love.
Add a little bit to those guys.
But yeah, that's probably something I'm trying to do.
Yeah, and one thing that concerns me about Tua is like he's throwing for so many yards, and yet he's still a mid-range QB2. Like, what happens if he falls back a little bit? What happens if Tyreek doesn't take as many to the house? What if he's like
Well,
10th
to
in
be
yards?
fair, the devil's advocate position there would be like he's kind of underperforming on touchdowns as compared to his yardage. So what if he actually hits a good touchdown rate and then he has 37, 38 touchdowns and then he's, the QB4 on the season type thing. We're mostly in alignment though. Like I just don't see much of a ceiling with him. Let's go to a somewhat polarizing player, I would say, in Dynasty, just due to his age. He's kind of like he's comparable to CMC and Kelsey. So Tyreek Hill. We have a trade up on the screen where I traded Dalton Kincaid, Cooper Kupp, and Adonai Mitchell for Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelsey. You're in this league. I have CMC. I have Tyreek and Kelsey. I have Debo. I have Derrick Henry. So I'm definitely trying to win in the next couple of years. It's like a very strong win now roster. So I was fine giving up. Kincaid is the best piece, obviously. Long term in this trade, I was fine giving him up. Mitchell doesn't mean a lot to me.
So first off, I'm trying to move Tyreek in any and all leagues. My reason being that I think his value is only going one direction, and that's down. This time next year, we're probably looking at a value similar to like a Devontae Adams, or maybe even maybe not quite to the Cooper Kupp level, but like in that late 20s range of wide receivers. And so you're just paying for the points this year, which I want to win as much as anybody. But if you I talk about all the time, if we look at the numbers, the odds of one player and their point differential versus, let's use Cooper Kupp because he's in this trade, doesn't end up mattering that much as we like to think. And so that's why I'm looking to trade Tyreek basically in all formats, including CMC, for that same reason, because maybe I can turn it into like a Breece Hall. So like Tyreek and Kincaid are probably in a similar tier of value for me. And then Kupp versus Kelsey are probably in a similar type of value for me. I'd probably slightly lean Kelsey, but I don't know that it's much of a different. I don't know. It's probably just like I'd probably lean the other side. But it's mainly because I like the idea of tiering that Tyreek piece into like Kincaid. And kind of the rest is sort of just noise. Y'all probably made that deal happen because the rest of the deal happened because you gave up a receiver, you wanted a receiver back, you got Tyreek, he gave up a tight end, you needed a tight end back. So I get why the rest of the trade happened, but from a value standpoint, it kind of seems like noise. But the rest of there's a bunch of trades on the screen from Fantasy Count, and they're all trades where you kind of look through them and tell me what you think. They're all trades where you're trading away Tyreek Hill, you're receiving a receiver, and in most instances, it's a receiver plus. That's what I tried to look for. And these are all trades in the last 7 days. So I'll give an example of a trade just to kind of give an idea, and then you kind of run through any of the ones that jump out to you. But I would say the majority of these, I'm preferring the trade away Tyreek side. So like here's an example of one, and it's trade away Tyreek, get Mike Evans, Joe Mixon, and a 26 first. My thought there is like you're giving up a little bit of points, similar age, you're adding a Mixon depth piece, and then you're getting a first in the future. So those are like the types of trades. Like if I have a Tyreek, I'm all over that type of move right there.
It would depend on how strong my team is. If I have a really strong team, I'm probably taking Tyreek there because I'm reasonably confident that my 26 first is going to be late. I know it's always a little bit difficult to project 2 years out, but like if I have 2 strong quarterbacks, if I have 4 strong wide receivers, like that type of team. But I agree with you that a lot of these I would trade Tyreek Hill away. And like the trade right below that, like if I can trade Tyreek Hill and Pacheco and get back Ramondre and Garrett Wilson, that's a trade I'm doing. Ramondre and Pacheco, I'd rather have Pacheco than Ramondre, but they're close enough. And then I turn Tyreek into Garrett Wilson. Like, sign me up for that.
Yeah. And I think you made a good point on the previous trade that if it's your own 26 first and you're thinking you're contending, then that's a little bit of a different story. In my head, I was thinking of that as like just a mid 26 first, but like, you're right. You should kind of think about it as like, this is my first that I'm trading away. So you make a good point there. If I'm thinking like I've got a really good team, I'm trading for Tyreek Hill, I'm all in the next 2 years. That's going to be a late 26 first. I can see that. I can see that reasoning.
Yeah, and then like some of these other ones, like Tyreek in a second for Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tyreek in a third for AJ Brown. Again, I'm totally fine trading Tyreek Hill away if I'm buying back 3 or 4 years on an elite wide receiver, and I'm only having to give up a second or third. Like in Amon-Ra's case, I'm buying back like 6 or 7 years, and Amon-Ra scored almost the same as Tyreek. Yeah, sign me up for that. But then like you look at one of these other trades, like this one person just got fucking worked, man. Baker, Jameson Williams, and a third-round pick for Tyreek. Like, yeah.
I wanted to get that one out of here, but I couldn't with the screenshot. I couldn't get that one out. But
that one I think is an outlier.
The trades on either side are interesting, though. So Tyreek and Rachaad White for Michael Pittman and Devon Achane. What do you think about that one?
Man, that one's interesting. I'm just not a big Rachaad White guy. I think it's pretty even. Like we said, we love Achane, so I think I'd lean Achane Pittman side there. But I think the only thing we disagree on with Tyreek is I don't know that his value is going to fall as dramatically, like to where he's going to drop 3 rounds in startup value. I agree that he has to keep an elite scoring points, like Devontae and Kupp, they fell down to that like 15 point per game range. If Tyreek does that, yeah, he's free falling. But like if he just crushes it again this year, I think people are gonna still put him up in that like wide receiver 10 to 15 range, like maybe where Ayuk and like Odunze are right now type thing. But I think Tyreek's just got a couple years left of great value.
One issue is that this was about either a year ago or 2 years ago. He said, this is my final contract, blah, blah, blah. So that would put him at the end of the 2025 season as being when he just kind of like cuts it off. Now, is he going to turn away like 25, 30 million to go play another season? Well, probably not.
Well, that's the thing. So that's the thing. He did say that like a year ago, but he also said after Jefferson's deal this offseason that he's going to need a new deal pretty soon. And he's had like 5 kids in the last year. So I can see him playing a few more years, you know. To me, he's just kind of a hard guy to predict. Like he's, you know, got kind of a weird personality. I wouldn't bank on him retiring in 2 seasons, but it also wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I'm not banking on that either. I would probably be, if I had him, I would probably be thinking like after the 2026 season is probably when it kind of wraps up. But also like Father Time is undefeated. I don't think anybody is going to disagree with that. And the moment that we lose a little bit of speed, which is what he is really separating himself on, that's going to hurt. I will bet on him being outside the top 20 after this year. And so that's why I just have really not much interest in owning him.
Just to touch on Waddle real quick.
Yeah, go ahead and hit on Waddle.
So he's wide receiver 13. We've still got the Tyreek slide up. You can see the ADP in the top right corner. He's right after Drake London and Chris Olave. And then he's before Odunze and Nico Collins. And I think that's about right. I would rather have Jalen Waddle, I think, than Olave. But with Olave and London being the primary pass catcher on their team, I understand why someone would prefer them over Waddle. To your point, or to the discussion we just had about Tyreek, how you feel about Waddle likely is factored in with how you feel about Tyreek and how many years he has left at an elite production. But all the peripherals on Waddle are great.
Yeah. Would you rather have Jalen Waddle or Tyreek in Dynasty?
Uh, it would depend on my team build. Like in the league where I did this trade, I would rather have Tyreek, just because like I feel like if I trade Tyreek for Waddle, I'm probably giving up 5 or more points per game, and I I would just rather have the production. Like with every fantasy asset, you're basically weighing value and production, and on certain builds, I'm more comfortable just leaning towards production over value. Um, I think it's just a personal preference, basically. But
Yeah, I took that route a lot last summer and coming into this year, whereas I used to be just straight value. And last year it just
yeah,
burned me so many times with guys like Eckler and Cup and Devontae Adams and Diggs and all these guys that I'm just not comfortable doing that again. I think I took like a one. I'm taking I'm reverting back to my old ways of just being a value snob. So I would prefer Waddle there. In the heads up, I think I have Tyreek probably closer to like the mid teens for dynasty wide receivers, probably even closer to 16 than 14.
yeah, that's fair. And I think a lot of people would agree with you. It's Waddle is definitely the safer asset. There's no question about that.